Holy cow! What's up, YouTube? How's it going? I hope all is well. Short Circuit is on. Holy cow, dude! I didn't even get a chance to put the drink down, and you're already in. I appreciate that. How you doing today, man? I hope all is well. Just doing some quick news today. Hopefully you're excited, as excited as I am. The reason I'm excited is because I've been wanting to get stuff done on this. I've been lagging, all right? That's all I can say is that I've been lagging quite a bit. So, as you can see, we've got some metal pieces here cut out. That is one of the things that I have done. There are two different thicknesses. We've got the 1/8" stuff here. I've got some custom shaped. I had to cut those both. That was less than fun. And then we've got the nice fat stuff there for the front. So that took one afternoon to get all of that done. And some other things have come about as well. Hold on, let me grab it real quick. There is our faceplate. It's not very pretty at the moment because I still have the plastic on it. So, hey, I love it, man. Thank you so much for coming in, dude. I know it's difficult for some of these for some people to get in on these, and I'm not very good about announcing when I'm going to do them. So we're going to work on that one. This one's a little more impromptu because I made so much progress in the last couple days. I think in the last video I was talking about doing some more work on the words on the name on the back of the amp, and I have done that work. I could not let it slide. I had to permanently affix that thing. So this guy here it's permanent. It's not coming off ever again. I have a screw right about here on it, so it no longer wiggles anymore. And then of course I got them glued in and all that fun stuff. So that piece is a permanent fixture now. Dude, that's awesome. I'm doing the Dr. Pepper today. We're not on I've been slowing down just a little bit on the alcohol. Not for any other reason than, just too much of a good thing is still too much. So, I was sitting here going, man, I'm working every night doing all these videos and stuff. And obviously, having the drink is kind of the thing. But after like a week or two of that, you're just like, man, it's not good. But I've actually been quite well. It's been very busy at work. For those of you who don't know, I'm an IT technician for a company out of Santa Maria area. It's an agricultural company, and we're pretty big. If not the third biggest agricultural company in America, or top 5 for sure. So I've got 1,250 devices that I have to manage, something like that. I've got just about 300 direct employees that I, have to attend to, and then there's a total of 2,500 at our peak for our season of field workers, et cetera, et cetera. So I also have to, I don't deal with them directly, but there is still instances where I have, I got to do stuff with them or for them. So I'm a busy boy. Earlier today, I was doing some work on creating a VM, a virtual machine. So we have a cluster in one of our server rooms that we have set up. And my job was to get a print server going. So that's what I was doing earlier today. So yeah, everything's been going well. It's just been busy. So along with that, so that's, my 8 to 5 type of deal. I get up at 5:30 in the morning, my time over here in California, and I'm in the door at work by about 6:10. It literally takes me, it doesn't take me long to get to work. I roll out of bed and I'm out the door pretty much. But I get home about 4 o'clock usually, 3:30, 4 o'clock, right in there, and I go straight to the garage. The wife loves me, by the way. Not for that. She's off right now at Costco buying some stuff. So that's how my day's going, in case you really cared. So we're starting to make some really good progress on this thing. The goal is to have all of the stuff cut out and ready to be, I guess it's not stained, but finished, I guess, if you will, by this weekend. And I have to by this weekend because I have to get another project done, not related to this. So that's the hope, is that by tomorrow evening, I'll have the rest of the wood cut out for inside of the amp. The reason I'm taking my extra doodah time on that, though, is because I only have one piece of wood big enough to do it, and I can't goof it up. It has to be right. So if I goof that piece of wood up, I have to order another one, and it might be another week before it comes in. And as we know, that won't be any fun. So give me just a few moments while I put this away. So I have been diligently watching Andy today. I've been fortunate enough, like I mentioned, to just kind of be in the office and whatnot, and I'm lucky in that I can put on YouTube and stuff like that and just kind of listen to it in the background while I'm managing a bunch of phones. So today I think I touched at least 20, 30 phones today. So I heard about Country Boy. That is a shame. I caught a part of that live stream a few days ago. I might see if I can go back and watch it again, just to it's kind of a bummer when that kind of stuff happens, but it does happen. It sounds like there's a little bit of, oh yeah, the green honestly is growing on me. Hey, how's it going, Mr. Grimm? And hello from Lompoc, California. Yeah, the green is growing on me. I wasn't thinking I was gonna like it, but yeah. Interestingly enough, I have a 77 Jaguar, an XJ6 that has a V8 in it, and yeah, I'm one of those guys. And it's that color of green, roughly. And I've never been a fan of that car. I don't like that car. I don't really drive it. We got it for my kid, but he doesn't drive it much anymore. It's one of those things where that car, it's never really the engine that's always a problem. It's always something else. Every time you touch that thing and drive it, something else breaks. You fix it, and then something else breaks. You fix that, something else breaks, and it's just like, and the electrical issues on it, oh my God. Don't get me started. So that car needs to go. If you're interested in an XJ6 with a V8 in it, a 350 V8, and I believe it's a Power Glide something or other transmission in there, like a something 400 or whatever, yeah, let me know. But I think I'll keep this color of green in my repertoire for sure. I have enough to do, I believe, 3 more amplifiers. So I have at least 3 more amplifiers I need to finish up. I've got what one? I'm looking at what I can see in front of me right now. 2, 3, 4. I have 5. 5 amplifiers that I need to create a shell for. I have a baby blue colored Tolex for some of them. I have a red, kind of like garnet red kind of thing going. It's kind of like the green, how it's got the light green and the black kind of bit in it. Well, it's the same for the red. So I think they call it garnet or something like that. So I have that color as well. I have a little bit of purple left, although I'm not a fan of purple. It contrasts really well with the handle, though. I will say this, that purple that I used for the purple hazel, it contrasted really well with the leatherette corner, or not, it wasn't even leatherette corners, those are real leather corners. This amp here is getting a real leather handle and real leather corners as well. So this thing is going to be an absolute beauty when it's done. My plan is to make it so that all my amps have leather corners of some sort. I don't know if they'll all be that, dark brown kind of color, but it'd be kind of cool to... One of these days, I'm going to find like a faux fabric of like Louis Vuitton. And I'll cover it with a Louis Vuitton, and I'll put the natural leather on for that. I think that would be kind of just gimmicky, but fun. Years ago, I actually used to work for Louis Vuitton. I was a security officer for them in the Santa Barbara area. Oh, Wildcat. Hell yeah. The baby blue color is just beautiful. Minnesota. You're over. Yeah, I'll bet you're over, Purple. um, the gentleman that I built the purple hazel for, purple is his favorite color, and I'm not too exactly sure why, but he loves the color of purple, and he's like, I want you to build me an amp, and I want it to be purple. And I'm like, oh, all right, I'll do it because it's you. I love you. So he was the same gentleman that actually had the giveaway amp that we're doing right now, or that we're talking about right now. He's the one who's had it for the last several weeks. He lives a few blocks away from me. He is an electrical engineer, an actual electrical engineer, and he's the one I go to make sure that I'm not being a dumbass. So he looks inside, kind of pokes around, plays it, and then he gives me his thumbs up or his suggestions on, mainly on the sound. He says that the work that I do inside of the amp is second to none, and that there's just no beating it. And I'll prove that to you right now. Hold on. There she is. So yeah, this is my work right here. So it's just about ready. I have to change that guy out still. I haven't done that yet, and I still have to change out that what do you call it? Silver mica that's right there. So that's one of the cheap ones there. I got the CDM, which is the Cornell Doublier stuff, and then of course I got the nice Vichy or whatever, that brown like Omite branded stuff for the actual cathode bias resistor. Fat Strat. I have it's a sucky story, just because it's not a cool way to end up with a guitar. But I used to do sound at this venue. I'll push this back just a little bit, but I used to do sound at this venue, and there was one particular night I was not the sound guy, and the band that was playing that particular night, thank you, sir, left one of their guitars there in the case and everything. Like, it was just sitting on the stage, and I was like, what the hell? So I put the guitar in the closet and let a few people know. I was like, hey, there's a guitar in the closet. If somebody comes by, they're looking for it. It's a nice guitar. Well, 30 days goes by, 60 days goes by, like 2 months, literally, at least 2 months goes by. Not one person had even called about that thing. So I was a little bit bummed, but because I was the head guy, I asked a couple of the people at the thing, and I'm like, hey man, I got this guitar. I don't know what to do with it. I don't even know what the band was that played, so help me out here. And they're like, no man, I don't want it. So I ended up acquiring it that way. And it's a beautiful guitar. And I'll show it to you, kind of. So it's like a wine red. The color isn't quite right in this lighting, but it's like a burgundy slash, it looks like burgundy, like wine red. But it's a beautiful guitar. I don't know, I like it, but this is my shop dog. So it's gone through a couple iterations in its life. When I first got it, like, it had the cheapo, it's a made in Mexico Strat, so it's not an American one. So it's, probably only a $500 guitar or whatnot. I say only, but at the time it was only a $500 guitar. But the pickups that were in it were just trash. So I swapped them out for some humbuckers on Hot Rails or whatever. And I never quite gelled with it. It just was one of those, I think it's something about the wood. I'm not sure what wood it is. I don't think it's alder. And it's got the swimming pool route for the pickups. So it's got this large cavity in there. And, it's never gelled with me. And then I bought some Seymour Duncan, what are they called? Like the Antiquity series. I bought the, whatever the Surfer version is. I wanted something more similar to like the 60s or 50s, I think it was actually, or 65 maybe, I don't know. But in either case, those were just too dark, too smoky for me actually, and I thought they were going to be bright. So I didn't like that. So then I was like, well, let's try the other direction. And then I put a set of the SL1s in there, the Seymour Duncan SL1s, I think is what they are. And those were like unusably thin and brash. It sounded like what I thought a Strat was going to sound like. So then I was like, forget it. Obviously, I can spend a bunch of money on a bunch of pickups that I'm never going to be happy with. So why don't I just build my own? So I wound up my own pickups for it, and lo and behold, I was like, I know what it is that makes them too bright, and I know what it is that makes them too smoky. So I kind of tried to build them somewhere in the between, and they came out really good. I'm happy with them. So I don't know, can be done. I got a couple different guitars that I built sets for. My neighbor has a set that I built for him as well. At one point, I was thinking about doing pickups for as another side gig kind of thing, but I will tell you right now, as anal as I am about things, it's one of those things where it's not any easier to do than anything else. And I'm looking at what they could charge for these things. I was like, no, I'm not gonna be able to do that. It took me too long to do the work, and I was like, I'm not selling these things for $100 a piece. It's just not even worth it. So how the custom winders figure out how to do that stuff at the price that they do is beyond me. Because I think kind of the end of the line for most pickups is right around what, 100, 150 bucks per pickup or something like that, even for kind of the boutique ones. I don't know how the hell they can do it, but they must have something better than I got, and mine's not a slow machine. I actually kind of cobbled one together. I'll show it one of these days, but I literally took like a stepper motor, and then I got a stepper motor controller, and I got all the stuff so I can mount a thing to it. And then I put a counter on it, so I had a Hall effect counter on it, and I can make it so it counts up or down. And I got a dial that I can turn that determines how fast the motor spins. And I think I can get it up to like 1,000, almost 1,000 RPM, something like that, 800 or 900 RPM. And by that time, you're buzzing. Like it's almost too fast, especially for me. But so yeah, it takes maybe 10 minutes maybe to do a set of pickups on it. Now I'm sure some of the faster guys with the machines that do like literally over 1,000 RPM on them will probably do it in a couple minutes, but I don't know. The hard part for me is dealing with getting the wire through the little hole for the ferrule for the leads. Those things are small, man, and my eyes are I'm old, so my eyes are starting to go. So it's really hard to see the hole, and then to actually, pain in the butt. That's all I can say. Does anybody have any questions about this? You guys are kind of quiet. I don't mind, but I was not anticipating this being a long, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, I'm not that exciting, and I'm shocked that I got as many people in here as I do at the moment. But whatever. So yeah, this guy here, I've probably easily got over 100 hours in right now on it in totality. And interestingly enough, this part of it was the quick and easy part. I can probably, if left to my own device, and on the left, so these are the face plates, or the fascia pieces. So the amp itself, let's see if I can do it, sits in there like that, and then this guy will go along the bottom there in the front of the amp, right? So those are nice fat chunks of aluminum. That is the power transformer. This is the output transformer here. Those are two 6V6s. That's a 5 AR4/GZ34, and then just a couple of 12AX7s. This thing is pretty much well over-engineered for... in the case under the transformer. Oh, okay, yeah. I guess not a lot of people know what I do. So this little guy right there, that is an LED driver. So there is a light that is going to be in this thing, and that is the driver for it. And these leads here, I haven't finished all that stuff yet, but these leads will go to a little controller that you can set the level that of the light. Little things like that. You know what it is now, a real show. Sorry, excuse me, that was rude, but I have to do it. That's what makes it a real show. So Luke, you probably haven't seen a lot of my stuff yet. So a lot of my a big portion of my amp kind of company, if you will, is no push pull actually. So that's master volume, and it's post phase inverter master volume. So it's essentially got two volumes in it. So I've got you just have to trust me. There's two volumes. So this is a 5E3 bass design, more or less. It's not exactly a 5E3. It's been pretty much modified. So it's using my own style of front end on it. No, that's all good, dude. Stick around if you want. Subscribe. This is a giveaway amp, by the way. So that means it's being given away. And the way that we're doing it is you win points by basically playing my games. And I've got one game left. You might even be able to be the tiebreaker, I guess, if you wanted, because that's another spot I'm getting to right now. But I'm doing a giveaway on this thing, and by getting points, it earns tickets. And each of those tickets, of course, enters you into the drawing. There. So I got these tickets the other day. And more or less, I'm going to start going through my list of people here in a bit. And it'll be another month before we actually get to that part. But I'll start going through and tallying up how many points everybody has. And for each point, you get a ticket. Those tickets will all go into a bin. I'll turn on a blower, and it'll blow all the tickets around, and then they'll pop out. The last ticket in the box or in the container is the one that actually wins the amp. You'll also get a t-shirt and some other stuff like that. So I think it's kind of cool. It hasn't garnered as much attention as you would think. So don't be afraid to spread the word around, but there's only a couple rules, more or less. You have to be a subscriber, and you just got to play the game. You play the game, you get points, you have a chance to win. Right now, I think there's only about 30 or 40 applicants, if you want to call it that, players in the game. Right in there somewhere, maybe a little bit more, but I want to say there's maybe a total of 100 tickets worth out of it so far. I'm probably not going to do it this particular way next time. I'm probably just going to do it, straight up as a raffle. So, if you want a ticket, you spend $25 per ticket or something like that, and we'll just go until there's enough to afford this thing. This is easily, as I was mentioning, 100 hours worth of work. Between this and the head or the cabinetry for it, which, oh my God, this part's the easy part. That was kind of what I was getting at. Left to my own devices, I can probably do this in 3 days. I can have this done because everything's already done now. So for like the face plates and stuff like that, I just hit go on the laser burner and it's out it comes. The chassis, now that I have it built already, I know where all the holes are going to go. Just zip, 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 zip. That would be done. The turret board and whatnot like that, I can do that in a day, easily in a day. So, 2 or 3 days time, I can have this done. And it comes with a cabinet, yes. And that's the part at the beginning of the video. It's probably best, Mr. Grimm, if you go back to some of my other videos. It shows more in detail what's going on with the cabinetry. But I did kind of show that at the beginning of this video, just briefly. So yeah, that's why we were talking about the green. But I'm working out a lot of the stuff on the metallurgy for it. And, we talked about these pieces here. These are chunks of aluminum that had to be hand cut and hand finished. And I still have holes to drill in them. So there's a little bit of work to do. And then maybe you didn't see it. Maybe you did. I don't know. But here's the face plate for the front of it right here. So it still has the plastic on it. That's why it doesn't look very pretty. But that LED driver that we were talking about has 2 LEDs on either side of this guy here that lights this up, and it looks pretty and all that fun stuff. It's got to look pretty. Another point I was getting at about this thing is a lot of what I do for my builds is aesthetic. My thing is yes, it has to sound good. Obviously, it has to sound good. But I mean, this is a 5E3. It's kind of hard to fuck it up, right? But it's gotta look the part, and that's a big part of what my builds are, is making it look the part. So I try to do nice, clean layouts, really more appropriate, I guess. Proper grounding schemes. Just kind of keeping all the noisy stuff away from the input side of things. As you can kind of tell, all the noisy stuff is down over here, but that's what I try to do. I tend to do more lower gain style amplifiers, so most of my amps are not really high gain. They're pretty much just like clean pedal platform style amps for the most part. They do have their own grit, sans as a result, because of having post phase inverters or post master volume phase inverters, which is a big part of all of my designs, is that I have that in just about all of them. So you can kind of get the balance between output section and preamp. Well, there's not really any preamp distortion in these things, but you can kind of balance between those two, if you want to call it that. I guess it's more phase inverter distortion. Let's say that is how my current designs are kind of working. I do need a tiebreaker though. I'm gonna go away here for a moment here, but so if you go to my YouTube channel and you look at my posts, let's see if they're still in the same spot it was. I don't know if it's changed. Nope, nobody's added anything to it yet. So I had a game that was being played, and the game was supposed to end on Monday. Well, I forgot to close the game out because I'm a dumbass. I've been busy doing all this crap. But it ended up being in a tie. So there's basically a tie between building a 1969 like super lead style Marshall kind of build or my own high gain or medium high gain style amp. When I initially started this thing, the medium to high gain amp, my own design, was really leading the pack. Like I think it was at 75% at one point in time, which isn't saying a whole lot when you only got 25 votes. But in either case, it started there, and now it's at 42 and 42. So there's a tie that we need to break, and that's why I'm getting to you again, Mr. Grimm. If you want, go to my channel, find the posts, and you'll see it. You can't miss it. It's the top one on there. Vote. That's worth 1 point, which means 1 ticket, right? And then in the comments section, tell us or tell me, I tell everybody, really, just tell us which one of the two you picked. That's just my way of knowing that you actually did what you're supposed to do. That's another point. So that's 2 points right there. That means 2 tickets. And out of 100 tickets possible, or, likely being in the whole of the game, 2 tickets is better than none. And I still have another game coming up next week, so you can have it. We're only going to, not next week, but here in a couple weeks. Yeah, right? I'm basically giving him the opportunity to get in the game. So do that, and you can break the tie, or at least I hope you'll break the tie. I don't know. It doesn't sound like the build-off amp is going to come to fruition this time around. But another area I was getting to is that because the medium to high gain amp was already leading the charge. Hey, Tony, how's it going, man? Thank you. I appreciate that. Because it was already leading the charge, I took, I didn't want to sit on my loins, so I have already ordered a chassis. That is on its way. So it's a blank chassis, no holes, nothing in it. It's just blank. So that's on the way, and I've already ordered a power transformer. I already have the output transformer in stock in hand, ready to go. But now it's a toss-up as to which of those two it could be. Luckily, I think the transformers I picked will work for either one, so that's not the end of the world. But it's one of those things where I'm like, gosh darn it, had I known, I would have also ordered some tubes, which might have slowed me down a little bit. So I already have the tubes that I want for my own build, but if I have to do a 1969 super lead style thing, I need to order another set of tubes. So I'm like, darn, I can't second guess you guys. That's what more or less is I'm getting at. But Tony, how's it going, man? I appreciate your kind words. We try to do nice work here. So I was telling the other guys that this is a giveaway amp. I don't know if you're a subscriber or how you ended up here, But thank you for coming and sticking with us. But this is a giveaway amp, so if you're interested, you have an opportunity. I don't know if you caught most of what I was saying, but stick around. The only real rule is that you have to be a subscriber, and then there's a couple games left to go right now. So I need a tiebreaker. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. I just lost one of my cats not too long ago. He got sick as well. Had a baseball-sized freaking whatchamacallit in his stomach. It was hard to see though because he was like a 20-pound cat, so he was already pretty big anyway. Yeah. Well, so here's the thing, Mr. Is it Shupe? Is that how you pronounce it? You can buy this amp if you'd like. Not this one, but oh, that sucks. Yeah, that's not good. Well, I hope he feels better soon. Are they doing like radiation on him or anything? Or is he a big cat too? So John, you can buy this if you want. I don't have a specific spot to order it, but there are ways to get in touch with me here. You can get a whole, if you go to my YouTube page, you can find my email and whatnot. You can email me there and we can talk about how you can acquire this. But this one is for free. If you want to try to get in on the giveaway portion of it. So I was just explaining to the other gentleman that you need to just go to my YouTube page, find my posts, and one of those posts is about this amp. Oh no, not this amp. It's a game for this amp, I should say. And part of the game is to, vote on which one you want and put in the comment section which one you voted for, and it's just for me to verify, and that's worth 2 points. All right, so 2 points gets you 2 tickets to these guys right here, and 2 tickets are better than none because that means you can win this thing for free. I'm not asking for a dime. Don't care, don't want any money, not monetizable anyway over here, so couldn't give it to me if you wanted to. So yeah, this thing's got to go. All right. Any other questions? Did I tickle everybody's fancy yet today? I wasn't expecting to actually have a crew of people on here. Subcutaneous. Ooh, yeah. Oh. Yeah, 2 more. I'm loving this. I'm shocked. I don't really do lives a whole lot, just for the few of you that are here, but so it's kind of new for me, so I'm still kind of working out how to make things interesting. Obviously, you don't see my face. I'm the talking hands kind of guy. That's obviously going to have to change at some point. I think it would be smart for me to actually show my face, but I'm not ready yet. So, and I don't actually have like a full-on business going yet with this. We're still working out all those details. So, yeah, I'll say it again. I say it many times, but you're basically watching a company grow from the ground up. So they come up from the ground up. But we're getting to the point where we can sell these things, more traditionally. But for now, I'm building a repertoire of amps, I guess, if you will, and just kind of getting the name out there. We're doing pretty good. I think we got like 2,400 subscribers now, which is crazy to me because as boring as this guy is, I am shocked that people will actually sit around and listen to me yip yap about silly stuff like this. Most of this channel, for the 2 of you who are new here, it's mostly about how to do this on your own. It's not so much meant to try to sell you anything. So I go over how the circuit was designed, why you do this, why you do that. So if you haven't gone to my channel before, there's not too many videos on there. There's like 100 and something right now, but some of them are segmented into like builds. So there's other ones that are more probably pointed to interest that you may have. But I can't really say that a Fender is a Fender or a Marshall, etc., etc. Fender kind of started the whole thing realistically, right? They're the kind of the first ones to become like the big hits. But not everybody did the same thing at one point. It just happened to be that Fender, Marshall, and Vox became like the heavy hitters of that era. And I think part of it was just Fender was quick to jump on the surf like music scene and get in with the American side of things, right? Marshall and Vox being both British, Marshall just basically copied Fender, and Fender was just basically taking stuff right out of the RCA handbook, right? But because they had different parts available, they just used different parts. And, they changed some values here and there, but that's, I think, really the only thing that made them all that difference. I think somebody actually did a test on it once, and a Marshall actually has more clean headroom than a Fender does. I haven't tested it. I can't quantify it, but that's one of the tests that I had seen is, do you think, Marshall's known for being dirty, right? Sure, when you crank them up, yeah, but they actually have a little bit more clean headroom, I guess, at least in the test that they did. But there's 100 different ways to do it, and it's the sum of all parts. And the more you start stacking in there, the larger the difference can be. Although I'm still going to kind of stand by one of my ideas that the speaker is honestly going to do the biggest change, period. If you took 5 amplifiers that kind of had the same basic topology, right on, Tony. I appreciate that. I'm glad you're a sub. Have you been playing the game at all lately? Get some points. You can get this guy for free. I don't have Facebook, actually. I'm not played, Yeah. Dude, you gotta get in on this game. Something's better than nothing. Just subscribe and check it out. I don't put out videos too often, so it's kind of hard to miss me. But if you want, that's I'm just saying it's an opportunity, and it that's all. But so you kind of get what I was getting at with like the more number of parts you put in there, the greater the hysteresis is, and et cetera, et cetera. Awesome, thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. The video, well, it depends on what you're interested in. They're broken up into series right now, and the 5E3 giveaway amp series is what this one is in. And there's a Purple Hazel series, there's a combo amp, like fundraiser series. There's a bunch of different ones. If you're more interested about how I kind of came to some of this stuff and like the math, not the math so much. I try to keep the math out of it, but like how to do the grounding schemes or why you do the grounding schemes, how you come up with the wattages and why you would select this transformer or that one. Those are in the Building Basics series, or the Building Basics episode like 1 through, I think we're at 10 or something right now. So that's the more technical side. If you're more interested in just like the different build topologies of what I do, then just find the different build series that I have, and they're all done that way. Yes. The speaker's the biggest thing. If you play 5 amps that are relatively close to the same kind of topology through the same speaker, they're probably going to sound pretty close to the same. The only thing that's going to be different, I think, mainly is just how one breaks up maybe a little bit sooner than another. Maybe some tonal aspects, like maybe some let a little more bass go through or some cut a little bit more bass, et cetera, et cetera. But for the most part, if you've got 5 people that have built a 5E3 to more or less the 5E3 spec, it's going to sound like a 5E3. But most people don't have the same amp and the same cabinet, so it's like one of those things where that is the big what if, right? Single SE JCM, so like single-ended? Okay, yeah. I think that's what you mean. Hell yeah, dude. That's way cool. I love single-ended amps. I have a 2 5-watt designs. One with a 6V6, it's kind of like a champ more or less, and then I have the one with an EL84, excuse me. And that one's kind of like a Valve Junior, an Epiphone Valve Junior, which whatever, So they do a thing, like it's really cool what they do. How's that? I was gonna do so for the build off that is supposed to happen between Andy Lederman and myself, which will happen eventually. One of these days we'll do it, but I think he's more into just kind of doing himself right now. I think he's kind of not trying to, but is kind of taking a break from building amps at the moment. You can tell he's kind of trying to slow down a little bit. But in either case, we were going to do a build off together, and the goal was to do a single-ended amp, and I was going to do something kind of along the line of like a JCM 800, but I was shooting to get about 20 watts out of a single-ended amp. So that's the idea anyway. That's way cool, dude. I am sort of in a spot where I could do that. That's kind of why I'm doing this one. This easily has, oh gosh, if I haven't breached $1,500 yet, I'd be surprised. But it's at least $1,200 and something dollars worth of parts. Probably more than that if you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it. But and then just the time alone, I've got easily 100 hours in this thing. I mean, this realistically should sell for like $4 or $5 grand, but I don't think anybody's going to spend that much for it. But I am lucky enough to be able to afford to do that. I don't think I can do it as a staple for this channel. Maybe on occasion I can do a giveaway amp. I kind of decided I would do it this time. Yeah. Okay. So how many watts is really what it comes down to, right? So, a single-ended amp with like a 6L6, you could probably get an easy 15 watts out of, right? So for single-ended amps, you can kind of expect to get right around half of whatever that tube is, unless you start getting into parallel tube designs. So, if you had a KT88, that's like a 40-watt tube, you can easily get 20 watts out of it, right? An EL84 is about a 12 to 14-watt tube. I think most of them are realistically 12, but you tend to only get about 5 to 6 watts out of them. Same for 6V6. 5881s, EL34s, and a couple other tubes like KT66s or whatnot. Those 3 tubes right there, they're all about 25 watts a piece. I think the KT66 is only like 23, but cut that in half. You can easily get about 10 watts out of them in single-ended mode. So do start with that, more or less. A single preamp tube would actually get a little bit more than you think, but you're probably not going to be able to get it to push the output section into distortion. Maybe you can if you're aggressive with it. Where I think it'll start getting weird is when you actually start getting it to make the second tube start to break up. I think it won't do what you hope it does. I would shoot for at least 2 tubes in the front end. But enough voltage. Well, so 6L6s really don't need that much voltage, to be honest. I think the max on most of them is like 500 volts. Even a 6V6 is, I don't think you should breach 400 volts, but most people get real close to that. And 400 volts is enough for a 6L6 to get it, at least 25 watts out of it. And it's a 30-watt tube, so 400 volts on the plate of a 6L6 is pretty conservative, I think. And that's the number I would kind of shoot for, to be honest. And you'd probably be looking at I think it would, I can't remember what output transformer the value would be, but off the top of my head. But I don't know. Lower voltage on the plates does kind of help get it into that grit territory that you're looking for a lot of times. Now, unless you actually want like 100% clean, output headroom, then yeah, I guess maybe going peak to peak versus the winding ratio. Yeah, I can't remember exactly how it is. I think with less tubes, you go higher in value. So a single 6L6 would probably want something at least like 5, maybe 6K or something like that, primary impedance. And then as you get to like 4 6L6s, you're shooting for right around 2K or something like that. But the voltage, I don't know, like there's not that much difference between like 50 volts, right? Maybe a couple watts, maybe. So it doesn't really affect it that much. What I find seems to be the biggest determining factor with the voltage is that, yes, you lose a couple of watts, but you gain more life in that tube. Like you're exchanging full on shit and get for a little bit of longevity, which I prefer the longevity of it. And it's kind of nice to have a tube that breaks up just a little bit earlier, since most of the times you don't really need the actual volume the amp produces. Most people, not everybody obviously, but it's all, I guess, just design goals. If you want full on all the beans and you want it to be as clean as you can, and you got to wring that thing out, it just won't last as long. If you build an F1 car, you're going to get F1 problems. That's the way I kind of look at it. It's like, why does a Toyota Corolla freaking last 200,000 miles? Well, because it's not producing 500 horsepower out of its little 1.8 liter, V or 4-cylinder, right? But you take the same, that same little 1.4 liter and stuff 1,000 horsepower out of it, it might last, down the block. I have this running theory at the moment too. I kind of prefer cathode biased amps. To me, they have more dynamic range. They feel better under the fingers. Some people don't like that though. That is a me thing. But my kind of the theory that I have is that going with a lower plate voltage introduces more cathode current, right? Because less voltage, more current. More voltage, less current, right? That's kind of how that works out. So when you lower the plate voltage, you get a little more cathode current, and then there's like this ratio of plate and cathode current that kind of evens out. And when you start to divide it up a little more evenly, you get, you maximize what you can get out of the tube. So you're still going to get the 25 or 30 watts that it has to produce, thereabouts anyway. But it's not working. Hey, what's up, Team YDNA? He's in the house. He made it. I was wondering when he was going to show up. Thank you for the shout out. I seen that you had a couple mentions for me today, and I did go check those out. But that's at work again? Well, I guess you're on a different time zone than me too, so it's probably first thing in the morning for you over there, huh? But that's my running theory. I don't have a way to actually quantify it or prove it, but by, evening out the workload between the cathode and the plate, you still get all the benefits that the tube has to offer while still maintaining as much lifespan as that tube will offer. That's my idea. It does come with, everything has a pro and a con, right? So whether you appreciate those pros or those cons is, of course, for each individual. So I am never going to tell anybody that I'm the best builder / designer in the world. It's just, everybody's got their different way of doing it. And I kind of feel like I'm doing mine a slightly different way. And I am erring towards conservative. I think that's the answer going forward, mainly because I don't like new old stock. I think it's bullshit. And, if you want your parts and your tubes and everything else to last 10, 15 years, you just got to play nice with them. I don't like doing maintenance any more than the next guy. So let's see here. So I'm trying to get an idea of what you mean by getting noise, but so you mean that when you turn the amp up loud enough, you can actually start to hear the output transformer like rattle or ring? I think that's just a lack of potting. That's probably, I have a few of my amps that do the same thing. I find it to be less prevalent in ones that have the end bells on them. Yeah, the output transformer. Okay. Oh, dude, I'm always happy to answer questions. I'm not a know-it-all. I'm not going to sit here and say I know everything, but I hope I have a good idea about what's going on. Ow. Hold on. Wife's trying to call. She's in for a sad, rude awakening. I'm not able to answer, so there. Yeah, okay. So what you're hearing is the output transformer start to saturate. It's literally that It's literally that the coils inside there can start to vibrate along with the signal that's going in. I mean, you got to think of how much volts are going into that thing at that point. Like, that thing is getting pounded, and mine do it as well. I do find that it's a little more prevalent with the output transformers that have end bell caps on them. The open core ones, like the ones I use in my 18 watt, where it doesn't have end bells on it and you can visibly see that everything's been potted, those ones do a little bit better at not producing any kind of noise like that little rattly ringing sound. How destructive is it? That I don't know. It's probably not good for it. Probably not. But I haven't had any problems with my amps, and I literally thrashed the ever-living hell out of them. This amp here has been in testing zone for the last month and a half, ever since I gave it away to my friend who bought the Purple Hazel. Every time he's played this thing, it has been dimed. Where are the knobs at? All right. You can actually see, so this is the master volume. That's where it was set. That's where the volume was at, and then he runs the low cut pretty high, and he doesn't like highs that much, so he cuts it back quite a bit. But so the volumes are almost all the way up. So that's where this thing has been living for the last month and a half, is right there. And it hasn't, like, the way I do it, these tubes, they're never going to go white. They're never going to burn off. It's just, I'm conservative. Again, that's just how I try to do it, is conservative. They actually say, and I don't know how true this is, but there was a YouTube video that came out not too long ago, and they were talking about whether or not rusty output transformers or rusty transformers in general were better than ones that are painted. And I think they actually said that the ones that have rust on them and that are more weathered looking are actually better at their job. And it has something to do with the eddy currents that are in it. I don't know all the details, but like the varnish, I think most transformers, they use a varnish to pot them with. But I don't think they do like vacuum potting. So they don't stick it in a vat under suction or under vacuum or whatnot. And the vacuum, of course, would pull the varnish into the coils all the way and entirely. I think they just literally dunk it in there, hold it there for 10 minutes, pull it out, and call it a day. And I think that's where a lot of the problem with some of them are, is that, because they're not under vacuum and they're probably not built to the highest standard these days. Well, if ever. They're just prone to it. Now, some look better than others, though. Like the not Mercury Magnetics. It is, Mercury Magnetics. Like, those things are stupid expensive. I'd love to work out a deal with them to buy them at normal pricing, but I don't know that I can order enough from them to get them to honor that to me. They're amazing looking transformers, and I'm sure they're plenty great. But the ones that I have come across versus the ones that I get from either Hayboer or Hammond, there's no difference. Honest to God, the transformer doesn't make or break the amp like they make it sound like it does. It's an important part of it. You don't want a cheap pile of crap, but it's, the difference between one and another is pretty small. Whether it makes noise and all that other fun stuff is the other half of the debate. So, yeah, right? So, I wish I knew a little bit more on that. I'm not a professional, like, I don't wind my own transformers. I know enough about them to kind of be like, okay, I know what they should be and how they should be built and all that stuff. Paper versus plastic or versus this or that, the bobbins and stuff, the laminate, whether it's the E style or the whatever, the T style. There's like all these different things, right? They have a different effect on it. But Mercury Magnetics, I think most of their stuff is plastic, which is usually attributed to cheap. But I don't know. Like, obviously, plastic doesn't have any dielectric problems. So maybe that's how they're getting away with it. Whereas paper is maybe part of the sound of some of these things. I don't know. I have 3 different output transformers that I have gone and A-B'd. Again, thank you, Tom, or Trucker Tom. Welcome. um, I have 3 different ones that I have tested with my 18-watt design. And one is the cheap China, one is a classic tone, and one is the, well, actually, I've tested 4 now at this point. I have the Hammond and the Haybower. And between the 4 of them, they're really not that different. Like, the difference between them is not that much. And here's the interesting thing. The China one, the cheap one, the one that was probably 18 or 20 bucks or whatever it was, sounded identical to the one that I got from Hammond. Like, it sounded just fine. And interestingly enough, it measured the best out of all the 4 of them. So generally with an output transformer between the primary and the two and the center tap, so the primaries and the center tap, there's usually a couple ohms or a few ohms difference between them. With that China one, it was literally exact on either side. Like, they got that center tap like exactly in the middle. It's crazy. It's, yeah, dangerously close to snake oil talk. Well, you know what I mean? Like, any company that's around today and still doing that thing that we are interested in is around today because they actually have something that's viable, right? It stood the test of time. Hammond's been around, almost 100 years now or something like that. Haybower is American. They've been around probably, 25 or more years, maybe longer than that. I can't remember exactly what their history is, but, you got those other companies like Drake. You've got Mercury, Mercury Mag, all those guys. Like, they're good at what they are. Some are just more expensive than others. Edcore, I think they make great stuff, right? I'm not a fan of the color, so I don't buy them. I also find that some of their transformers are not really tailored toward what we are doing. They're more hi-fi based, but Edcore makes great stuff. Yeah, I don't buy changing the fuse to change the sound. It's a crock of crap. Maybe if they put maybe they did something. Okay, you've heard of that theory that they have about tests. Like, you can always make a test kind of work out the way you want it to. It's kind of like they hide the battery inside the perpetual motion machine type of thing. Like, I imagine if you're crafty enough, you can hide a diode or, a Zener diode or something like that inside of that fuse. And that'll drop 10, 15, 20 volts. And yeah, that 10 or 15, 20 volts might change the way the amp sounds. I don't know. I'm just saying. I know it's kind of snake oily, but, or what are you, conspiracy theory? But, in an amp like this, where there's literally, I think you can count on one hand the number of parts that are actually in the signal path, like actually physically in the signal path. It's pretty hard to get anything to change in there unless you really go drastic. I have a running theory with the capacitors. Yes, they will sound different, but the worst of the worst option, like, you take the cheapest, most generic pile of shit coupling cap that you could possibly get, and you get the most expensive one that you can possibly get. The difference between this one and that one are not going to go from doo-doo to world's best sounding amp, period. It's just going to sound a little different. And I think you might find that even that cheap pile of crap is still going to sound really dang close to the other one. Good enough, right? For me, I use what I consider to be middle of the road. Like, the Jupiter capacitors are probably better capacitors, realistically. I don't have a way to quantify that, but they're a hell of a lot more expensive. Well, expensive enough over the cost of, like, these Zozos that I'm not going to expend it, right? To me, it's just get these guys because they're not cheap and it's inarguable that they're good, right? Nobody's going to sit there and say, oh, Zozos are piles of crap. I think we all know that they're good enough. Now, maybe the Jupiters and the Synergies and the Mallorys are better. I wish I could get along with the Vishay/Mallory ones. Those are actually some of the cheaper ones. I did build an amp recently with them, and I wasn't that impressed by them. It didn't really make that much of a difference, but it was just like, I like these ones. They work really well. So that is a me thing though. So, but it's still always the sum of all parts. So the more you change, the more it will change. I think most of it's going to come down to feel though. Like you have to go pretty drastic in some instances. Maybe like a cathode resistor you can get a little bit of mileage out of. But the plate resistor, there's only like 3 or 4 basic values from the standard selections that you have. And yeah, the difference between a 100K and a 220K is noticeable. But the step in between might not be. It would be cool to listen to it and go that direction, but for the most part, there's a reason why 150K isn't a standard value. It's always 100K or 220K. And it's just, that was my shrug shoulder, like go figure kind of look. But I don't know. The only person that can validate that is you. They're just the standard values that everybody goes with. So it is what it is, I guess. But coupling caps, I think they make the most effect kind of around the output section, to be honest. Like 0.022, I've said it in many videos, 0.022 is like the magic number. If you do not know what size coupling cap that you want to go with a 0.022, start there. So I have another design that has it later in the circuit. I think it kind of starts to lose its value. It's a little more difficult to get it to go into breakup because you're feeding 2 grids, and you have 2 plates and you have 2 cathodes that you're, pushing into that, right? So it doesn't break up as early and it doesn't break up the same as a normal, triode stage does. And the benefits that it does have kind of goes away. The real benefit to the parallel thing, which is in this amp, you can kind of see the little crissy-crossy stuff I got going on there. That is the parallel triode there on the front end. In the front end, you can get away with a smaller grid stopper, and you need to because of the way the Miller capacitance works when you double up the grids and the plates and all that jazz. So you get away with a smaller value grid stopper, which means you can let a little more brightness through if you want. It sounds a little bit bigger, a little bit fuller, so you get just a little more oomph out of it. And it does have a little bit more output than a standard triode would have. Not a whole lot, it's enough to quantify it though. And I think what I've noticed is that it responds more to the size of the plate resistor a little bit more. Like it's a more subtle but noticeable difference. So technically, in order to make this identical to like a normal triode, you should use like a 56K or a 68K plate resistor and then like a 750 ohm cathode resistor, right? That's to make it exactly like a normal 12AX7 triode. Well, I'm using 100K in this one. Is that what it is? 150. I went with 150K. That was the spot that I settled on. Now, in some of my amps, I have a 220, and in some of them, I go with 100K. So you get a little bit more, a larger selection, I guess, if you will, for the same workable range out of that tube, doing it that way. And then for the cathode resistor, I usually end up going with 1.5K. It just seems to work every time. And because it's in the front of the amp anyway, you want to try to get a little bit more out of it. Now, instead of going warmer, though, I have found it sounds a little bit better when you cool it down a little bit on the cathode. So what I'm doing is allowing a little bit more negative swing, if you will. So you can drive the front end a little bit harder before this tube will start to break up. But what it does is it reduces the noise floor by 3 dB, or half, just about half anyway. So it's noticeable. So you get less hiss and less shot noise, less all that noise, less everything. But you get more output, all right? A little more snot to push into the next stage. So that's the benefit of it. Well, when it's later in this, later in the amp, it just kind of loses all of those graces that it has. So that's me. I don't know. I do have an amp design where it is the second gain stage, but I'm still on the fence on whether or not I want to keep it that way. It just doesn't. It does a thing, but it doesn't do the thing. And I've lost everybody. I think I've only got maybe you, Short Circuit. I try to tell people I'm not interesting. If you're on this channel, you're here to learn. So, or at least I hope you're here to learn. I'm happy to answer questions. So, I don't know. I'll give away the secrets. It's really not a secret. It's just I have the ability to go around and play with this stuff, whereas other people don't. I think that's the only thing that separates the men from the boys. Really, is that one guy goes out and just freaking does it, and the other guy has to, manage their, mind their P's and Q's and do it the first time right, which I think is why the future of amplifier, companies and builders is going to be kind of in the kit market, I think. So I don't know, I could be wrong, but I just feel like at some point nobody's going to spend the money for those Benson amps. I think they're a little too pricey for what they are. They're nice, don't get me wrong. They are hand-wired, but I think they're a little bit pricey for what they are. And they're still kind of in that, almost in that BAD field. Like, I think he's like 2 steps away from getting there. But people are going to get sick of spending the money on the Friedmans, knowing that they're just modified Marshalls. Nobody's going to spend the money on the modified Marshalls that Marshall makes. And, companies that have sold away to BAD or BAD, a boutique amp distribution, like those I think those companies are going to start to die out at some point, because more and more people are going to be like, no, I can build it for less than what I can buy that thing from. And now anything coming out of BAD is basically PCB. They might be hand wired, which is to say literally that somebody put the wires in, but the turret board itself is just an eyelet board with, traces on it now. That's what they're doing now with the Morgans. That's what they're doing now with the Friedmans. Bogner's been doing that way for a while now. Basically PCB based. The Diesels, even Diesel is PCB based. Now Mike Soldano's been kind of doing it that way for a while, but it's not getting any better. It certainly hasn't gotten any better, I should say. So that's just the way that those amp companies, that's the only way that a company like that can survive now, is to race to the bottom. And that's what I kind of call it, is the race to the bottom. And it's when you start racing to the bottom, you only stand to lose. Because once you get there, there's no going back up. Just look at Jet City as an example. Look at B-52 as an example. Look at Crate as an example. Like, those 3 companies alone have failed in the last, 15, 20 years or something like that. Carvin has basically fallen out now. So these are all companies that were racing to the bottom to get it to you the cheapest they possibly can. The only companies that can do that are ones that are multi, whatever you want to call it, like multi-level, right? Like Line 6. They're in everything because they're owned by Yamaha, right? I dare say Behringer, even though Bulgaria, I don't think they make Bulgaria anymore, do they? And I think they just quit because it was a pain in the ass for them. But, things like that. There's companies like that are just, that's what they can do. But now you even have Marshall trying to race to the bottom. And you've seen the trouble that Marshall's been getting into. Now they're owned by a Chinese company. You can only imagine where it's going to go from here. Down. There's not too many big companies of names that you have heard of that are doing it better than they ever did before. They have a way to make it so they're more affordable, which is what keeps them there, which means racing to the bottom. Yeah, I'd have to say you're right. At the end of the day, the best gear you have is the stuff that you own. I mean, these are not cheap toys. Like I was saying earlier, I'd probably have to sell this thing for 3 or 4 grand to even make it a viable like business venture. I don't know that people will pay that much for a 5E3. I could be wrong, I could be right, but I'm hoping I'm wrong and that I'll sell a few. But I think at some point I'm going to have to find a way, well, especially as a casual player, right? But I think I'm targeted more towards, the guy that, dare I say, like boomer, or, not posers, but guys that just have the money and want that kind of thing. Like, these are more like furniture pieces than touring grade like gear, even though I dare say you could throw this thing off the top of the building and it might still work. I'm not trying to become UL listed or all that jazz, which does add to the cost, but I think honestly, like Dr. Z right now, Dr. Z and any maybe Bad Cat in their hand-wired series stuff. I think they still sell some hand-wired stuff, but Dr. Z for sure is the only truly boutique brand today that is as, a household name as they are. That's, dare I say it, I think Dr. Z is the end of the line for as good as it gets for that kind of, whatever you want to call it. They're still actually handmade. They're still doing things the right way, or the way I think it should be done. Even if he's not really doing truly unique circuits, I think he's got a couple that are truly his own, but most of them are kind of like homages, like this. Let's take a 5E3, change it up a little bit, and send it out the door. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. And he did just start his Legacy series, not to be confused with me and Legacy amplification. But his Legacy series, he's doing a lifetime warranty, which I'm going to do anyway, not just because I've been building the amp for 20 years or something like that, but lifetime warranty, all, hand wired, and they know that circuit inside and out. They know where all the problems are, so they will work all those things out, right? Best bang for the buck still. I think they're still right around the $2,000 mark for more stuff. DNA? Are you talking like Andy's channel? I'm not sure what he's up to exactly. I know he finished that, the Purgatory amp. I know he's done that one recently. I did buy a ticket, by the way. I'm just more interested to hear out sounds. It's not that I couldn't build one myself, but, I like to support if I can. And $100 for a ticket's not that bad, I don't think. I'm lucky enough to have afforded, I guess, but I kind of am interested to see if that amp will come with the baked in like cigarette smoke smell, like I got a PV, what was it? Ultra series. It was like the 120 eons ago. The one with the big, like it was the thickest shell ever. Like that thing was literally 1.5 inches thick, like all the way around this thing. It had the angled front with the blue, like PV in the 1980 style, like the sharp pointed logo style thing. Killer sounding amp, but that thing literally smelled like an ashtray. It was rather interesting when you open up the box, like punched me in the face. Yeah, okay, that's what I figured. Oh, nice. But yeah, Andy, I think he just built that thing, and I kind of hope I win it. I don't know. I kind of think my odds are good at the moment because I think he still has like 25 more sets to sell. So I bought $100. I put in $100, and that gives you 5 tickets. So he's still got 25 more people out of the 35 that he was anticipating to pay that thing off. I think it'd be fun to win it. It would be neat to just kind of see how he does things. If he doesn't bolt that thing together in such a way that I can't get into it. If I win it, I imagine he'll probably pop rivet everything together. But it'd just be interesting to see like where his design goal is, because he doesn't really show what his schematic is per se. He doesn't break it down kind of like I do, or leave it wide open where people can stop, pause, and figure it out. But I think it'd just be interesting to see like how his concept works. The amp that I want to do next, mainly because that's where it was kind of leaning towards anyway. Hey, there he is. He's back again. Yeah, YDNA is. Oh, no, that's John of Internet Money fame. So yeah, I know that I see you on Andy's channel all the time, but or often anyway. But yeah, I don't do these lives too often, so it's funny to watch like the viewer count go up and down. It's kind of interesting. I know I'm boring, so like I lose half of you, and then some of you come back in, and then I lose half of you, and then some of you come back in. I think I get the hardcore, I get the hardcore guys, but I think I lose people because I talk too much and about shit that nobody cares about. I'm not that interesting. I've said it before. So on the build that I want to do, I wanted to do my own, 50 watt higher gain amp. I'm not going to call it a high gain amp. I'm not trying to do like an 8-string chugger amp thing like that. But I wanted something that could do like a nice mild crunch. So like, what would you call it? Like plexi crunch up to, semi-saturated lead stuff, right? Or saturated lead kind of style. But not necessarily, I'm not trying to be Meshuggah over here. But I started buying the parts for it, but the way I want to do the next build, I want to do it all live, which is going to be painful for those of you who watch, but if you want to know how this stuff is done, that's probably the best way to actually learn, is to kind of see it done in real time, because it is not quick. It's not fast, but you get to listen to me cuss and cur and figure out, how I'm going to solve this problem and that problem. And you think it's easy. It's like just measure it out, drill a hole, and you're done, right? No, it's not that easy. You would think it's that easy, but it's not. This was a prototype amp, right? So I haven't built this before, so every part in it had to be figured out where it was going to go. My 50 watt design has never been built before, so I'm going to have to literally figure it out as I go. Now for me, I overthink things and I over-engineer things a lot, and I don't like making mistakes. So I don't often just jump into it and, just do it thinking I'll figure it out later. I usually try to think 5 steps ahead to try to make sure that when I get to that, that 5th step, I'm still in a safe space where I can, alter my path, if you will. Well, on this one here, same kind of deal. It was come up with an idea and make sure that this idea wasn't going to screw me later on. Future Luke needed to be happy still. No, not really. I kind of had to do this myself. That's funny. Oh, John. I kind of assumed they would. Like, there's just no way they can't. I hate the smell of cigarettes. I'm not gonna lie. I hate the smell of cigarettes. And that amp that I got, one of the reason I sold it, that PV Ultra, was because it smelled like you walked in the room and it just smelled like a freaking 30-year-old ashtray or whatnot. And you're just like, holy hell. And I tried washing it down with stuff. I tried sparing it with stuff. Nope, it was indelible. You actually did you actually get one of his amps that he built, or both of yours are the kits, right? I'd love to talk to. Well, I guess Randy probably wouldn't even be a good gauge on that, because he smokes too. So I don't know if he'd be like nose blind to it anyway. Right? You will not have any cigarette burns on the Tolex. Although I can't say it's going to be flawless. It won't be like getting an amp from, the company du jour. I mean, I've been touching this head shell for weeks, Mr. Mofo did not smell. All right, Lefty, what's going on, dude? We do have a YDNA owner in the house now. It did not smell though, huh? What did it smell like? Did it just smell like new amp or something like that, or fresh Tolex or something? There's something oddly satisfying to the smell of Tolex after it's been glued. It has like that tinge of the cement, and then just like that plastic, like what do you call it? Like the kiddie pool smell that you get of that plastic. It's kind of got a tinge of that to it. So it's kind of a unique smell, and then you can still smell the fresh cut wood too. So it's, I don't know. I thought about spraying the inside of the cabinets with like a perfume of some sort, or a cologne or whatnot. All right, that's good. I would have thought that it would have smelled like cigarettes, like, or it just like it comes pre-baked in. Yeah, you know what? It's just like a woman's underwear, man. You want to get in there and go, oh yeah. That's I'm sure it does. There was a video. He did a short that he put out recently. I can't remember if it was the bird. I think it was the bird that Amber was holding, and you could hear him in the background playing on some amp du jour that he's got. And it sounded like it was pretty monstrous. I'm just not into that style. So I'm not into building it. Okay. So yeah, you wouldn't know. You're getting some mileage out of that JMP one or whatever. Is that the JMP 50? Yeah, vintage, they do. So I have a 61 Corvair. I love that car. And there's just something about getting into it. It doesn't matter what's gone on over the 30 years I've owned that car. It always smells like old, and I love that smell. It's better than a new car smell for sure. I could live in it. I like old. I wish I could find a way to make something new smell old. That would be cool. Kind of part of the reason why I was thinking about spraying like inside of my amps, like just like a some sort of a cologne or something like that. I was thinking something like an amber kind of cologne or something like that, or what's the ambergris? Yeah, just to kind of give it more of a, I don't know, a baked in smell, I guess, if you will. Just not new like Tolex and fresh cut wood and what's that? The Danish oil that I use to finish the wood parts and stuff like that. That's probably part of the reason why it's going to take a while to send this thing off, is I got to sit on it long enough that stuff truly cures and hopefully some of that smell goes away, and I can ship it, wherever it needs to get shipped to without the finish melting anything. But obviously you're into higher gain stuff, Lefty. So I think I asked you before, like how his amps kind of compare to others, because you have you have at least one of his amps, right? And then you've got, I think, what was the other one? I can't remember. You were testing kind of, or comparing it against. Was it a 5150 or something like that, or a Mesa? I thought about that too. Thank you, Mr. Carno. How's it going, dude? I didn't see you today on the chat in Andy's channel. Were you working today? I'm stealing everybody over from Andy's channel. Is he doing something right now, or is he doing like Returnal or something like that? I'm guessing he's doing. I know I get prompts every now and then. Let me see here. Is he doing anything? Let's see here. Sorry, I'm being dumb, but yeah, he's live right now. He's got 36 people watching. I've only got 7. I'm boring though. Anyway, no, I appreciate that, Carno. I do. Thank you for coming over. And then yeah, John, I get a thing. You've been posting about one a day at least, and I try to make it a point to jump over there as soon as I get it, so that way, um, get in there, man. We got one more game. I don't know if I think you did. I haven't gone through to really check. I need to check again, in fact. Did we break the tie yet? No. Hold on. Wait. There we go. Oh, we finally got a winner. The tie has been broken. All right. So, yeah, we're doing my medium high gain amp. 5150. Yeah, that's right. Very articulate and ballsy. Okay. So I had a 5150. Or 6505, excuse me. My apologies. Same really, but to me it was just so dry under the fingers. Like it was like you put your finger down, it was just like there wasn't like a it was just like balls out every time. And that was really kind of, for me, I do have a kind of a touch, I feel. And so it was like I can do the soft and I can do the dig in thing. And that's what I like, is that feel of soft and dug in. But that amp, it was like all or nothing. Like you put the thing down, if you pluck the string a little bit, it's and that was it. That was my experience with it anyway. So I'm just not a fan of super stiff amps. But maybe he's got a way of would you say that the amp is stiff but it still has the feel under the finger? Like if you play soft, it still has that? Or I'm just curious. Yeah, I could do a small block of cedar in there or something like that. That's not a bad idea. So here's the thing though, I'm not a huge fan of the smell of cedar. I love the smell of walnut, but walnut's not exactly cheap, and it's not exactly the most pungent of the woods out there. Although it does kind of have that old like dirt smell kind of baked into it, which is nice. So there's this, I have a BMW. That's my daily driver. And they make the scent called like Balancing Amber is the scent, and I love it. Some people think it smells like soap, but it just kind of has a nice warm, like clean smell to it, right? But it also smells kind of aged. Okay. And all over the place tonally, yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know. I mean, I think maybe the next time he does a higher gain, he doesn't do the same amp twice, so it doesn't do anybody any good. Oh, okay. Nice. Okay. Well, then somebody else got in after you and has changed it again. So right now it's the high gain that's taking the lead. It's not, until I get in there, I can't really say for sure. But right now it's 44% are going for my design, 40% for the 69, and 16% for the build-off amp. I am going to, as soon as this stream is done, I'm going to close that game because I don't want it to tie up anymore. No, I don't think he'll get in trouble. Like, he's not doing anything. Like, I think he's walks a pretty fine line on how he kind of threatens people, I guess, a little bit. Not that he really threatens them, but, like, I don't know. I guess swatting is a thing, but those legally don't hold up very well. And I think it's kind of a dangerous game to play, especially nowadays. If you swat somebody and it turns out that there's nothing valid about it, I don't know. Maybe. But, okay, good. Somebody got on after you, so I appreciate that, because I was getting scared there for a minute. I played a Diesel, a little Fokker that they have, and I was actually kind of impressed by it. Like, I was expecting it to be a little brighter and not as full sounding. But the little Fokker, whatever the hell they call it, is, I think, the gainy or the lead channel from the VH4 or the Herbert or something like that. And it had a nice saturated sound to it. It was definitely higher gain. I wouldn't say it's super chuggy, but it's not like a 5150. But it had like the nice feel. It had a good feel to it. So it had a softer edge to it. I was impressed by that, like its smoothness that it had. And the tone controls on it were actually quite tunable. The bass didn't get it too woofy or woolly, and even turned down, it didn't get too thin. The mid didn't scoop out everything, and it was a good mid-range control. And the high, even if you turned it all the way up, it didn't get too brash. So I was kind of impressed by that. So I have not played a Fryette. Now, I had a friend that had a Pitbull, the original one, when Fryette was actually still building those, and it was still VHT. And that one sounded really cool. That one's an interesting one because that one was actually an EL84 amp. I think it had 4 EL84s in it. So it was only like 30 watts or something like that. But he does something very unique in his, I think he does, what do they call it? Like a cathode follower stage that's in the power amp section. So it keeps the tubes or the power tubes from going into blocking distortion. So it kind of has its own little thing going. But really cool amp. I never got to play it myself, but okay. Yeah. Well, to get back to that, so my plan for that was to do it all live. I was saying that's kind of the best way to learn this crap, but I don't know how interesting that'll be for everybody, but I'm trying to figure out a way. It won't just be static like what we got going on right now, but we'll have multiple views. Maybe I'll show my face during that series. Ultimately, I'm going to have to do it anyway, so I probably should just pull the Band-Aid and get it over with, but I don't know. I'm just not ready yet, guys. And I'm telling you, it would be so distracting. So distracting. Oh, wow. Damn. Why are you getting in fights so... Like, I can't remember the last time I got in a fight. Maybe I'm just getting older. But I'm pretty good about talking my way out of crap anyway. But but don't hit people. It usually never ends well. I just don't see Andy getting in any kind of real trouble. Not legally anyway. I don't know. Like right now, I think he's in a good spot because he's got mostly people like you and I, or the people in this thread here and I, on his channel almost all the time. So it's kind of just the mod show lately. At least that's what I've noticed the last few days. And the mods, I mean, they like to bicker with each other. It's kind of funny, actually. Well, thank you. I know it's going to be a badass amp, the one that I'm going to do, but it hasn't actually been designed yet, so we're going to kind of make it up as we go along. Years ago, when I was still working out stuff with the 18 watt, I tried several different designs then, and I am a fan of Doom. Like, I like Doom music, or Doom rock, or whatever you want to call it. The Pitbull, okay. And I'm sure it was dope. That thing had to be. I know that they were good amps. I know he has a variation of it now, but I think he calls it the Deliverance. Is that correct? Oh. Wow. That's yeah, that'll get you knocked one, I guess. Okay. Now, see, I'm not as much of a fan of high watt as maybe perhaps Andy is. I know he'll beat me up for it, but there are some design flaws from what what he was doing at that time. High watt, that is. But what's my favorite piece of gear? I don't really have one. Honestly, my 18 watt has been the most well-rounded amp. It's still the most fun to play. I don't know what it is about it, but it just has this like depth to it. So when you play cleaner stuff, and you really like, if you want to play quiet and soft, like its dynamic range is huge, which is crazy. Most of my other amps don't really do that thing, and I think it's mainly because it's the only one I have that does it that way. All the other ones are kind of mucking things up a little bit more, and this one is literally just preamp tube going straight into the phase inverter, and there's nothing else kind of in the way. Like there's no other inputs, there's no other like blended channels, there's nothing else, right? So it really does that thing. It's just been, for me, it's been the one that works the most. I've pretty much gotten rid of any other piece of gear I've ever had because it's just never suited me. The amp that I've had the longest in my arsenal, I guess if you will, is the PV, Triple X, which is just, it's mainly not that I really like it. It's just the only one that does, I don't know. It's got 3 channels, and it's got a real clean channel. And that real clean channel is the only reason I really like it. Because I can actually have a clean amp, and I can kind of, between those 2 gain channels, which are basically one and the same to me, I can get something out of it. So, and it does have that saturated sound. It's kind of the predecessor to the 5150, actually. I think they came out right about the same time, but the Ultra series that PV was making is the predecessor to the JSX, or the Triple X, or whatever you want to call it, but it's the JSX, which is what ultimately led to the 5150 and 6505 series stuff. So it doesn't have the type of distortion that the 5150 does. It's not as aggressive, but it's still kind of in that range, if you will. It still has a little bit of feel to it. And that's why I kept it over the 6505 that I had. It was just, it just has a great clean. That PV Ultra that I got, the one that smelled like literally an ashtray, had literally hands down the best clean channel I think I've ever had. It just really warm, bubbly, kind of almost like a Fender in a way, but it was refined. Not too bassy, not too thin, not too high or too bright, not too dark. And the mids were just right in the money. Like, I really like that amp. It's just, it smelled so bad. And the switching on it was too slow. That was the other downer with that amp, is you click the button, and it was like, it took almost half a second or something. It felt like it was forever, but you click it, and it was like, not right now. It was like, click, click, and you're just like, I want you to switch now. Another reason I don't like channel switching amps. The only way to do it so it doesn't have a click and a pop is to use like the VA, what do they call them? The VACs? Or VAR, I can't remember what they're called, but the ones with the optical ones. And yeah, dude, you got to get on with the beers. But those have all their own problems. The Vactrols, that's the term I was looking for. Right. Dude, you got a student for $30. Yeah, you sounded like freaking YDNA up there, Team YDNA, freaking stealing all the cool deals. Did you hear his story? I guess he went into a guitar store the other day, and they had a GNL with a real Floyd Rose, and it was basically like an EVH amp from the earlier days, but it was a GNL. Brand spanking new. He said he picked it up for dick all, because I guess over there in Vietnam or whatever, they don't know what the hell they got. Yeah, the Classic 30 is a killer amp. I'm not a fan of the sound of it just in and of itself, but it's actually, it's got a neat little sound to it. But in the right hands, those things just slay. There was this band, I keep forgetting the name of them, but I know the name of the album that they produced. It's called Mayday. But in either case, they used the Classic 30, and I just remember the first time I heard it, I was like, ugh, I don't know how that's going to work. And then the whole band came in together, and it was just like, oh, you win. I'll eat my words. So, fry it. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, fry it is so. Remember, I was talking in one of my other videos about why amp builders are so weird, and he's kind of one of those characters that's not that. He doesn't fall into those categories. I mean, his story is somewhat interesting. Like I think he's done work with Ampeg and stuff like that. He's done work with all these things. Like he's got a storied past, but he had legal troubles for a little while. His business was starting to go through a thing, and then now he's settled everything down, and he's got things dialed. But now he's kind of going the way of bad. Everything in his amps are PCB. He's starting that race to the bottom. But he's not a kook. He's not odd. He's not weird. He's just a straight up dude, I guess, if you will. And I don't think he's interested in dealing with his past, to be honest. Like, because I think it bothers him, to be honest. Like that, original VHT stuff, I'm pretty sure is going to be a thorn in his side for forever. I just don't see it being one of those things where he wants to get involved with it again. I'm also pretty sure he doesn't deal with warranty work anymore either. So there's probably something about older amps that he knows he even can't. Not that he can't fix, but the parts to fix it are probably far and few between. And then trying to teach, somebody on his current staff how to do it, is it worth it to do it? I don't know. I'm just spitballing. I'm not saying for sure. That's just my guess. I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to have like 20 different amplifiers in my lineup. And, okay, hold on. I'll read it. Yeah, well, so it's tough. I'm working with so this amp was being used in a little recording that I did, and the track that the my friend chose is a pretty busy track, right? So because it's really, really busy, it's hard to find space to carve things into, and it's really, really difficult to find space when you have like 6 levels of guitar going on, right? Because you've got a clean track in there, you've got a couple of rhythm tracks in there, and then you're trying to fit the lead track over it. But the backing track that he chose already has some guitar in it as well. And trying to make this stand out and not be a mess within that, the bass is a big thing. And I don't like thin sounding guitars, but you can roll off quite a bit of bass before a guitar in a mix will start sounding thin, right? It's when you solo it that it starts to sound a little weird, right? I guess that's where you kind of have to find the sweet spot. I was talking about this in my other live the other day about how most musicians like more bass than they probably should have, and I'm no different. In terms of a guitar player, I kind of like the guitar to push a little bit more than it probably should. But I also know that most of that stuff can get worked out. Like, if you raise the cab off the ground a little bit, you can lose some of the bass out of it, or it'll decouple from the ground, which means it'll have less bass output. So that's a trick that you can do. If your cabinet is like a 410, that's going to be difficult, but excuse me, but you can go down to like a single 12 and put it up on a riser or like a pedestal or something like that. Put it on a chair even, or same with a 2x12, or move it down to a 2x12. Again, you're just reducing the amount of speakers, which should in theory reduce the amount of bass, and then getting it up off the ground will help decouple it. You have to think of the ground as like a way to amplify everything, right? Because anything that it couples to will produce more of. Okay, yeah. So that's one way to reduce the amount of bass that gets in there. So most people, this is what I find. Let's say you're playing through a 412 and you don't have a way to really, obviously get the cabinet off the ground. Even putting it on like milk crates is better than nothing, right? Next thing you can do is, instead of miking the bottom speaker, which is what most people seem to go for, mic the top speaker of the 4x12. So you got those 4 speakers in there. You're going to try to get the one that's up here, not the one down on the bottom next to the ground. That will help pull some of the bass out of that mix as well, or out of that mic, I should say, if that's the way you're going with it. As far as the studio side of things, those are just all things that you have to kind of work out as you're doing it. I can't say how to figure out how to do it from the get. The way I like to do it is I listen to it through a pair of, like, whatever my monitoring rig is. I'll play it back, and I'll just try to see if it sounds even. So I don't want the highs to poke out too much, and I don't want there to be too much lows. I don't want it to be woofy, right? You just want it to sound full, but not woofy. As long as it sounds full, cutting the bass out of there will make it stay kind of full sounding, even though you've cut a lot of the bass out. So those are things to play with. That's what I've learned. Couch, yeah. Well, that'll dry it up. It gets the room out of it. I don't mind. Well, so here's another trick. If you're going that route for the recording side of things, and you've got too much bass, distance. So a mic has this thing called proximity effect. So let's say that this is the speaker, and then this is the mic. Well, most people will put the mic right up on the speaker grill, or very close to it. Well, the mic within like the first 6 inches, or within about 6 inches of the whatever it's miking up, will have proximity effect. And every time you double that distance, the proximity effect will go away. So proximity effect is the enhancement of bass frequencies in that microphone, and it has to do with the way it's vented, and allows it to work as a cardioid. So a microphone has kind of like this, heart-shaped look to it, right? That's the polar pattern it has. And in order for it to have this polar pattern, so this is the mic head here, right? And so it's going to have this balloon that comes around. It looks kind of like a heart. In order for it to do that, it has vents in it that allows the sound to get back in. Well, when you're really, really close to the source, the low frequencies are so big and long and wavelength that it envelopes the whole mic anyway, which means it can't cancel that stuff out. So it kind of works like an omnidirectional mic at those lower frequencies when it's that close. The only way to get rid of it is to build distance. Usually it takes about a foot, even 6 inches, you'll notice it, but move the microphone further away and it will pull some of the bass out as well. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. It's just to get rid of proximity effect. I don't mind having room, the sound of the room in the mic a little bit, because you're always going to add maybe a little bit of reverb or ambience, if you will. Most of the IRs that you get now come with the room kind of built into them. So a little bit of room's okay. It's just when you start getting to the critical distance, I guess, is where you start running into problems. Critical distance is where the microphone, or the point of reference that you're listening from, you can't determine the direct sound from the reflected sounds. That's the critical distance. So depending on where you put the mic in the room and how directional it is, you'll get to a point where the room sound starts to trump the direct sound from the actual speaker itself. So you kind of got to play around with that a little bit too. Sometimes you can use it to good effect, actually, to kind of have like that amp in a room kind of sound, is to literally just put the mic in the room somewhere, and you'll kind of know where to put it, because when you walk around and play, it'll just sound good at that spot, right? So put the mic there and play around with it a little bit, putting the mic at head level, nearer the floor, probably have a little more bass, right? Sunset Sound Plate, yeah, Instant Van Halen. I mean, that's all they did, is they literally put this thing in another room and just rattled it away. I like plate reverb to some degree, but I don't know. I like a good open, like, hall or concert type reverb. I like open air anyway. So here's a test. And this is something I've told bands to do in the past, because I get a lot of them that are like, how do we sound? Like, how do we get a good gauge for how we sound? Take one microphone in your space, right? Whatever your rehearsal space is, take one microphone and set it up just somewhere in the room, all right? Doesn't even matter really, but probably close to the center, right? And then all of you play. You'll know right away what your weaknesses are, because if all you hear is you got too much bass, something's too loud to cause it to distort or whatever the heck it is, and if you can't hear the vocals over it, right? Tape plugins. I don't like doing the tape plugins crap. Like, I don't use that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't like distortion if I don't have to get it, right? And I know that they're using it to try to get that saturated sound, which I guess kind of works for some things, but compression I will use. I definitely will use compression. Just because it helps get something locked into that, right? If you need something to stay right here in this little range, that's the way to do it. Yeah, right? Honest to God, if you want to know how good you are, that's the only way to do it, is to see how you can do with one microphone. Less is truly more. And you got to think of it too, like every time you add another mic to the mix, that is one more source that is out of phase with the other sources, right? So you're thinking like point source. So a point source, if you can imagine this, like everything is equidistant from it no matter where. But if you add another mic over here, there's nothing that's ever going to be, totally equidistant from them except for this one spot in the very middle. That's the only spot that's going to be equidistant from the two at any given point in time. All the other ones are some other tangent. Well, the more mics you do, the more of that kind of crap that goes on. So it gets much, much, much more difficult to really get a nice sound, clean sound, pure sound, I guess, if you will. That's why I say if you want to know how good your band actually sounds when you're playing your gigs, set up one microphone somewhere in the venue, and obviously keep in mind that the ambience of the room will be in there. But if you cannot hear and make out every part of the band, that's what your weakness is, and that's what you got to figure out how to fix. Yeah, just like that. Good old DVR. I've literally used like old the radios that would record to tape. I've used those before. I wouldn't say they're even shit. Like, I guess maybe from today's standards, they don't sound as clean and pure. Like, they kind of have that distorted sound, but I think that's kind of what makes them what they are. I mean, the advent of audio, like recording and all that fun stuff, didn't even really start until like the 70s. That's when like true multi-channel started to become a thing, where they weren't having to overdub or bounce 4 tracks down into 2 and then record another 2 tracks and bounce those back down. A lot of people don't know this, but the reason why the kick drum is always on channel 1 and usually why the horns are on the ass end of the mixes is that when you were, going to tape, the first and the last channels, at least the first couple on each end of the tape, were the most sensitive to being, having like, what would you call it? Like the tracks not lining up exactly. They had the most noise. So they used to put the stuff with the loudest signal to noise ratio or the lowest frequency content, the stuff that didn't matter anymore on those ones because it didn't matter that much. So the kick was placed on channel 1, not because it was the most important thing, but in fact, because it was the least important thing. The horns went on the ass end because they were so loud anyway that they could overcome that, that lack of fidelity that the edges of the tape had. So that's why they do it. That's why they did it that way. So that's why drums always go in first. But it wasn't until 1969 when they did Woodstock. It was four. Was it 4? I think it was only 4 channel Shure mixers, and they didn't even have EQ in them. Like, there was just a gain for each one and maybe like a tone control or something, and they cascaded them into each other down the line. So I think they only had a total of like 8 or 9 channels or something like that. That's how they did it. There was more stuff going on for the recording side. I think on the recording side, they had 24 tracks worth of those types of things going on. So on the recordings that you hear, there was more there than there was for front of house to get the sound out. I might be wrong on the total count of these things, but there was just several of these cascaded Shure 4-channel mixers. That's how they did it. Insane. This is 1960s. The advent of like monitor rigs for the stuff that we take advantage of on the stage today, you know, where you've got there was a video that just came out about Ozzy Osbourne's monitor rig, and it was 6 of like the highest output monitors that are made today. Claire Brother, you know, PA speakers. There's 6 of them in a V shape. Each one of them alone is probably good for 140 dB or something like that. But imagine 6 of them. That's how crazy it is now, where you can literally have 50 channels of mixing going on just for monitors. Back in the day, having 2 was crazy. I worked on a TAC Scorpion. I'm dating myself a little bit here. But TAC Scorpion is like an original like 70s era kind of thing. I think this one was like a mid-90s model. But it still only had 4 auxiliaries. One was echo. One was talkback, so one of them was meant for me to talk literally back to the stage, and the other 2 were actual monitor channels. That's how it was labeled. One was labeled as echo, and that was literally what it was for, because they didn't have reverb in live sound. It was echo, so they had a tape machine that they would run through it. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I like that concept. If it's meant for vinyl, listen to it on vinyl. And if it's meant for, you know, if it's anything in the modern area, obviously, you know, everything's, I kind of like how things are working out now. Carno, thank you so much for coming, man. I appreciate your time. Have a nice rest. I will possibly see you later this week. Yeah, pretty much. I like it. I love it. So years and years ago, they called it the volume wars, is what they called it. So the mastering engineers were literally finding any way they could to get just a little bit more. And it was all because they did a few studies in the mid to late 80s that found that a louder mix people would lean towards. They thought it sounded better. They were more interested in it. And then they also found, of course, too, that your attention would kind of go that way. So if your album was mixed louder than the other guy's album, people would tend to like your album more, which means they would listen to it more. Well, it turned into a shit show because everybody was just literally crushing the hell out of these things. So there's 0 dynamic range, you know, maybe 5 dB at best of dynamic range. And like they were just doing everything they could. What's up, Randy? Good to see you, my man. Alrighty, Mr. John. You have a wonderful, wonderful work session there. I'll see you in a little bit. Probably not tonight. We're going to call it here pretty soon, I imagine. But so that's what they were doing. And then finally we get into the 2010s, and they started to realize, like, look, guys, this is bullshit. We got to stop doing this stuff. Compression, limiting, and all that stuff. Yeah. So they were just literally crushing the hell out of this stuff. Well, initially they did. So a vinyl record only has like a dynamic range of, I can't remember what it is. It's like 80 or maybe 100 dB or something like that. If they got any more out of that, it would actually cause the needle to skip or jump, right? Nice. Good to hear, Randy. I'm glad you're still around. I've been watching some of your stuff. I've been seeing some of your Coleman, you know, your lamp stuff. I saw the one with the doggo the other day. He's a good boy, a good puppy. So yeah, that was the limitation, was how much volume they could get before the needle would literally just rattle itself out of the groove. CDs actually have more dynamic range than the human ear can perceive. I think it's like 116 dB. And I think they can do that with 16 bits. So that's why there's that argument of why 24 bits doesn't really get you much more, at least from true audio's perspective. And I think it's true to some degree, but if you can get the fidelity, get the fidelity. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having more headroom than you need. But getting back to the mastering side of things, they finally realized that crushing the albums the way that they were just sucked the life out of the mixes, didn't do anything good for anything, and they'd gotten to the point where they couldn't get it any louder anyway, because the radio stations and all the other different digital formats were dumbing them down anyway. YouTube, Spotify, what's the other one? I used to have it. Pandora, excuse me. So those guys, right? There's only so much dynamic range that they can deal with. So now they measure thing, I think, now in LUFS, and I think it's like minus 14 is kind of becoming the magic number. It used to be minus 10, and then back in the days of the wars, it was like anything as close to minus 5 as they could get. So I don't know. To me, I'm glad they've gone that direction. It just makes it easier for people like you and me to even mix our own stuff, because we can actually acquire those tools that will get it to that point. And it literally comes down to the artistry of what you can produce. Spotify, they have their rules. I can't remember what their limit is or whatever it is. It's probably right around minus 12 or minus 14 or something like that. I believe YouTube shoots for minus 14 or something like that. I can't recall off the top of my head, but that's where I usually shoot for when I'm doing my actual videos, is I'll put it out for as close to minus 14 LUFS as I can get it or something like that. There's so many freaking rules. It's crazy. Depending on what you're doing will obviously depend on how you do it. If you're in Europe or something like that, it's got a different set of rules. Same kind of like with the 60 hertz versus 50 hertz thing. When you tune your video cameras to, stuff or whatever. I used to do more of the audio crap. It's changed a little bit. In the last couple of years, I've been trying to get out of doing audio. I still own a bunch of equipment, and I do have a big show coming up here in a couple weekends. I'll have probably 5,000-6,000 people in attendance for a gig I got coming up, something like that. But I'm trying to get out of doing that stuff. I loved it to death. I still do, but it's starting to impede my ability to play with these things and just do what I actually really want to do, which is build these things. So we'll see. Randy, dude, I know you want to win this amp. Just because you're in Canada doesn't mean you can't put in a couple minutes and, try to win some points to get a ticket. I got the tickets right here. Your name can go on one if you wanted to. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. I'll ship it to you. Oh, okay. Yeah. Nice. I wish I was faster. So he's talking about me. I only have a couple of those actually though. I have some more. I could probably put them out. They're just not really relevant anymore because they're so old now. And they were shot with a potato. So I used to do a lot of track days when I was younger. I had an R6, a Yamaha R6, and I was pretty spanky fast. There's a track near me called Button Willow, and at that particular track, doing a 2-minute lap time was pretty spanky fast. You definitely weren't being shunned upon at that point. Now, the fastest of the fast were doing 1-minute 50s, but those guys were nuts anyway. But those were obviously the racers and stuff like that. But even being within 10 seconds of that was not joking around. The average rider, I would say, on that particular track, 2-minute 14 to 2-minute 28. So if I was, I rode in the A group, which is the faster group. If I went to even the B group in a 20-minute session, it would not be unfathomable for me to actually lap everybody in that group if I was the only A group rider there. That's how different it really is. I mean, 30 seconds, almost 30 seconds a lap is huge. But That was weird. I got a bug landed on me. Sorry. Oh, I don't know, man. The freaking two strokes are pretty freaking cool. I like the older bikes. I learned how to ride on it was a Yamaha? No, it was a Kawasaki. It was a KZ 1000. But it had a freaking huge freaking turbo on it. It was my dad's bike, but he was saying that thing probably produced something close to 200 horsepower. And I wouldn't doubt it. Like you never even really had to get out of first gear. That thing was a beast. But I ultimately ended up getting an R6, and I love that bike. I sold it a few years ago. I kind of wish I didn't, but now I'm rolling on a little Ninja 300, and honest to God, that thing is so fun to ride around on. I thought it was going to be a step down, and like, oh, I'm not going to be happy with this thing. It's going to be boring, this, that, and the other. Nope. It's the same. It just doesn't get to that speed as quick, but when you're going through the corners, you can spank on leader bikes all damn day. It's such a fun bike. But a doodle bug, huh? What is a doodle bug mini bike? Is that like one of those like little pit bikes? Those little pit bikes are fun. I want to get one just for the S's and G's. I'd also love the Grom, the Honda Grom. Oh my God, that would be so fun to have. I love anything on two wheels. I want to get a Panigale, a Ducati. That's what I want to get right now. It's just, life is such a pain in the ass. Do I put the money into the market and do better there and actually have a retirement? Do I buy a new house, or do I buy a Ducati? Like, those kind of thoughts are running through my head. Yeah, no, I imagine. Just the way they produce their power. Holy hell. I've been following MotoGP for a long time too, and I used to watch Mick Doohan and all them guys rolling around in their 500cc two strokes, and it was just nuts to see what they would pull. Doing the wheelie knacks all the way down the freaking thing at Laguna Seca and stuff like that. It's just like, dang. Valentino Rossi, I remember watching him when it was still in the two-stroke era. Yeah. Yeah, right? It is a hell of a lot more fun to drive a slow bike fast than a fast bike slow. Hell yeah, no, absolutely right. That is 100% right there for sure. I didn't know until I knew. Part of me kind of wishes I did learn on a smaller bike first. I probably would be a better rider even today. But given my history, I'm not a crasher, but given my history, I tend to keep things. So I probably would have gotten a 300 first and never moved up. I think because I got a 600 as my first bike, it kind of forced me to move in that direction because it's kind of where I wanted to go. I was this close to getting into racing. This close because I knew I could be a top 5 at least in the class that I was going to end up in. But it came down to spend all this money or, focus on just doing my career at the time. And for me, it was just like, be smart, Luke. You're not Valentino Rossi. So, you're not Ben Spies. You're not this guy. You're not that guy. You're just Luke. You're not Casey Stoner or anything like that. So I knew it was just like, yeah, I could do it. It would be fun to say I did, but it would probably be smarter for me to not do that. So I didn't. And then a few years later, I ended up selling the bike. So probably for the better. The only reason I want a Panigale now is it's a beautiful bike for one. And it would be nice to have a leader bike. I used to work on them a lot when I was in that era, so I was helping, do maintenance stuff on my friends' bikes. I obviously did my maintenance on mine quite a bit. And I did get to ride a few of the leader bikes around because my buddies would send them over and be like, yeah, take it out. So I take them out, and it is something else when you're in first gear and you can literally do like 90, 100 miles an hour almost in first gear. It's freaking nuts. And to think that you got 5 more to go, it's just out of this world. So anyway, Kenny Roberts, yeah. I got a poster somewhere. I don't. I probably lost it in one of my moves. I had a poster that was signed by all of them. Mick Doohan, Kenny Roberts, and all those that whole era of guys from the 2-stroke era. I don't know where it's at though now. I gotta find it. A buddy of mine has a knee puck that he got signed by Alex Espargaro. I think that's how you pronounce it. I was a big fan of what's the little guy's name? Damn, I can't remember his name now. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I am not a fan of the modern stuff. Like I was kind of hoping Fabio Quartararo would make it. I don't think he got the ride that he needs. Jorge Martin is kind of my favorite now, but I think he made a bad choice going to Aprilia, or no, KTM, I believe it was. I haven't really been watching this year. I know it's kind of the Marc Marquez show again this year, but I'm not a big Marc Marquez fan. Short Circuit, thank you so much. Ooh, yeah, okay. Well, don't have too much fun on your trip, but thank you for coming in, and we'll see you again here hopefully soon. So yeah, I'm not a super duper fan of the modern MotoGP era. It's kind of boring. It definitely bums me out that they've created some of the rules that they did for like the front tires, with the air pressure thing and the winglets. I get it. Like obviously you want the bike to be as fast as it can be, but then telling the bikes that they can't mess with the pressures in the tires kind of takes away from it. It's like, well, do you want us to go fast or not? I think, is it next year or the year after they're going back to 800 cc's again or something? I think that's what I heard. Again, they're just trying to get speed out of them or take speed away from them. But I think it'll be a little more fun then in the first couple of years when it's not just the. Yeah, well, I guess Jorge Martin kind of did win on a satellite bike, but realistically speaking, it's just the factory show right now. Well, and it's not even that. They said if you're not behind somebody, you basically can't race your race, which means that you have to sit behind somebody in order to keep the tire pressures under control. Well, to get the heat that you want in them anyway, all right? But then you got to get out of the line in order to cool the tire down so you don't build the pressure up. So there's like this balancing act, I guess, that they're having to do now, which means that they can't race a normal race where once they get out front, they can stay there. Mainly because they can go faster with the hotter tire, and the only way you can go get the tire hotter is to be behind somebody. So all the racing's done in the last 2 or 3 laps, which to me is just kind of boring. I don't know. I haven't watched that much of it this year, so maybe things have changed a little bit. Maybe I don't know. I might be talking out of my ass. But it looks like most everybody's left the chat because I'm that freaking boring, Randy. And I'm pretty sure it's just you and me right now. Well, yeah, right? I mean, second is first last, technically, but I don't know. I remember back when, you'd have 5 guys swapping paint 5 times in a lap, and, there was, like, edge of your seat, and you never knew who the hell was going to win. Now it's pretty much whoever is first on pole is going to win. Damn near it seems that way. I'm a little bit familiar with the EF86. I got a couple amps that I do use that. So what is it that you're trying to figure out on your AC4? So the AC4 obviously did, yeah, right. No, you didn't scare him away. I'm just boring AF. So, Andrew, thank you for coming in. It's good to see you again. So what is it that you're having trouble with? So with the EF86, you're shooting to have about 300 volts on the plate. If you can get it, it's not that you have to have it, but around 300 volts. 1.5 meg, I would go higher. Go for 2 meg if you can. But the G2, I find if it's too small, you'll start getting a lot of blatty distortion or some weird bleed. I'm pretty certain that they ran the grid, not the grid. What is it? The screen. What's the capacitor that goes from the screen to ground? That one there is probably a 0.1. Is that correct? And they went from the grid to ground, right? Yeah, no, that's true. Definitely. You sit there and watch and then take advantage. You swoop in at the last second. Another thing is the cathode resistor. I don't have a problem with 1.5K, but usually they're 2 point something K. 2.7, I think. What other problems are you having with it, though? Is it that you're not getting enough voltage? I think they said that the ideal voltage to have on G2 is right around 70 volts or something like that. I don't know if that's actually true, but I do know that the G2 resistor, so that 1.5/2 meg that you're playing with there, that one is highly important. And I would not run as high of a plate load resistor as they probably are. I think in that one they're doing, is it a 330K or is it smaller? I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. 100 to 220K is kind of the end of the road, I think, for those. They start getting a little too sensitive after that. So if you have a 330K for your plate resistor, I would dumb it down to 220K and see if it stabilizes there. If not, I would go down to like 150K or 180K if you can find it, or something closer, lower, just something a little bit smaller, right? But then up the G2, 1.5 meg, I had problems with that one. I tried it with 1 meg at first, and it definitely didn't do what I wanted it to. So 220 is not bad. It won't make or break anything on that point. Minus 400 though. How the hell are you getting minus 400? It is. I imagine you probably already have the circuitry in there wired for it, but on an this one's not an EF86. Hold on, let me grab mine real quick. Oh shit. Okay, so sorry. Don't laugh at it. This is not, this is a prototype I'm working on here, so it's still not actually right. You can see I've even got jumpers in here. I was playing around with what I wanted to go with on the screen grids. So this one here, I have a 1 point, shit, you can't even see it. Hold on. All right, so this one here, I actually have a 1.5K in it at the moment. It does work, but I'm using 150K for the plate. This wasn't originally set up for an EF86. It was originally set up for 12AX7, so the wiring's a little bit off. But you do know that 4 and 5 are the heaters, and that pin 9 is actually the input. And then I usually jump. They're supposed to be internally jumpered inside of the tube itself, but I find it better to take pins 2 and 3 and jump them together anyway, just in case. But you should also jump it over to pin 8, if I'm not mistaken, as well. But inside of the tube, it should already be jumpered internally. And then, of course, you've got the, oh God, where is it? It is, the plate is on number 5. Excuse me, 6. So out of 6 is the plate, and then number 7 is the cathode. So hold on, let me set this other amp down real quick. All right, so again, do not laugh at my work here. This is my prototype, so there's all kinds of weird stuff going on there. So yeah, I've had good luck with this. I'm still debating how I want to do the phase inverter side of things. Right now, this is the way it's been the longest. The reason I don't like it is because it's kind of just sounds like my 18 watt with a little more snot. And to me, that's boring. And because it's boring, I don't really care to do it that way. So what I think I'm going to do is convert this over to kind of like a 5E3 and make it a cathode phase inverter. I think that's what I'm going to do with this amp, and still run it into the output section the same way it normally is for like an AC30. But all we're really worried about right now is this guy here. That's the EF86. With this configuration, it's stable, and I have 300 volts right there at that point. So it should not be minus 400, but I would say 300 is a good number to shoot for, but I don't know what the AC4 actually has in it in terms of voltage. I don't think you're probably getting that much voltage there. Probably closer to 250 maybe. I'm guessing. I don't know for sure. But you definitely want to get that figured out first. Now, I would double check and make sure that your coupling cap, excuse me, your decoupling cap is doing all right. 270 original. Okay. So, yeah, 250, 300, right in there then. That's not bad. 270 is fine. So, yeah, that's what I would do. I would try going up to 2 meg or reducing your plate down to 150 or something like that and see if that stabilizes it. What more snot? That 30 watt design that I just showed you it's a pretty cool amp. It doesn't, how do I explain it? I didn't want it to be an AC30, so I didn't design it that way. Even though that's what it kind of seems like it would be, that's not what it is. I'm using a slightly different output transformer, and I'm using lower voltages, more sane voltages, as that's kind of my thing anyway. But it's a little bit darker than some people probably want it to be, and it just, how do I explain it? Of all my amps, that one is the closest, or gets the closest to the Dumble kind of sound of all of them, right? That really chewy kind of round sound, like when it's dimed up. It does that thing. I don't know why, I don't know how, because it's nothing like it, but that's kind of what it does. It's all phase inverter and output tube distortion, but in classic fashion for, AC30, when it starts getting a little gritty on the top end when you actually dime it all the way up. And that's the part I don't like, which means I have more drive than I need for the output section. And I tried toning that down a little bit, but then it puts too much onus on the, it puts a little too much onus on the phase inverter, which causes it to do other things. So it's like that balancing act. So that's why I've gone with 150K for the plate, is to kind of tame down some of the snot that a EF86 has. EF86 has. And I was able to get away with a 1.5 meg for the G2. But I honestly, you really need a 2 meg there if you do anything better than 150K for the G1. Just, that's my experience anyway. One of my other builds, the Atlas. I'm not going to bring it out right now. It's buried right now. But, oh, yeah, no, that amp is messy. Like, that's as ugly as it gets. So the Atlas, and let me show you that one's turret board. Want to talk about an ugly pile of shit. Hooey. So this thing here has probably had 10 different iterations of amps in it. And the turrets are all just covered with snot and just goo. You can see I got all the wires. I just cut it out. Like, it's a shame that I can't reuse it because there's easily $100 worth of parts on here. But yeah, this thing is just evil. But you can see that on this one, I did end up going with the 330K. What you can't see is that I ended up using a 2 meg. You can also see that I was playing around a bit with the droppers. And, you know, I started with a value but needed another value to get it back down to where I wanted it. And then on the final build, all of this was cleaned up and it was set up more pretty. But you can see I just threw shit in there. Like, they're not in there very pretty or anything like that, because every part in this thing has come out at least half a dozen times. It's nuts. But the bottom is basically untouched. So, I don't know. It takes a lot of work to do these things. It's a shame. Like, those 2 resistors right there, that's $30 freaking sitting right there. And I'll never use them again. They're in here, but I'll probably never use them again. It's definitely a shame. And then all of these guys, I mean, those things are, what, $10 a pop? So, unfortunately, that's the life of a designer / builder. So, I hope that answers your question. I would definitely cool down the G1. Or, if you don't cool that down, go up on the G2. Definitely make sure you're sitting at around 270 volts on G1. I think, like I said, they're shooting for like 70 volts on G2. Or a 70 volt difference, I think is what it is. It's not that your math is wrong. They're finicky. And also, I don't know what tube you got. If it's a new old stock, there's no telling what state it's actually in. It could be that the tube is bad. It very well could be that. But double check and make sure that pins 2, 7, and 8 are connected to each other. They should be. Double check, but I'm pretty sure that 2, 7, and 8. Is it 2, 7, and 8? Yeah. Or 2, 3, and 8. Excuse me. 2, 3, and 8 should be connected to each other. My apologies. So 2, 3, and 8 connected to each other, which also connect to the cathode, or ground, I should say. Obviously, make sure that the cap that's going from G2 to ground is good. You don't want that one to be bad. That could be where your problem is, actually. And one way to tell is to just lift it out of circuit. It's going to thin out the sound of that tube a little bit, but it kind of weeds out a possibility. And then the stability of that circuit comes from the G1 and the G2. The cathode resistor really doesn't matter that much. I use a 1.5K. Yeah, I use a 1.5K, so I heat it up a little bit there. I find it doesn't really matter whether you use a 1.5 or 2.7, but maybe that makes a difference. Maybe it doesn't. But I did find that the plate and the G2 were the spots that really made the tube either work or not work. My finding is that when you go too low on G2, it starts getting, what's the word for it? How does it? For me, it started distorting too early. And it was like this weird, like, overtone kind of distortion. It was interesting. I'm going to put this away. I'll be right back. All right. So, I am out of fluid. It is getting to be 9:30. We have been doing this for 2 hours and 30 minutes. Holy cow, that's a long time for me. I was not expecting this to run that long. Guys, I got to get to bed. I got to be up at 5:30 a.m. It's 9:30 now. I usually go to bed by 10. I'm one of those guys. Cool, man. Let me know how that turns out, too. Hit me up. If you go to my YouTube channel, you can see I do have an email in there. If you go to my About section or whatever, or the More and then About, so you can hit me up. Let me know how it goes, because I'd love to help you out and figure that out, because the EF86 is really a cool circuit, or cool tube, I should say. The circuit is finicky. I don't think it's as finicky as some people make it out to be. I think a lot of it has to do with what tube that you have. JJ has a variant that they sell I really have had good luck with it. I have 2 different versions of it. I have the gold version and the standard one, and both of them do the thing. I would say that the gold probably is a little bit better of one, but it didn't seem to matter which amp it was in. It kind of did the same thing, right? But it's noise free. It doesn't rattle. It doesn't, all that fun stuff. It's like it feels right. It plays right. It does the thing. But other tubes, especially NOS, I would say have a couple on hand, because it could be you have a bad tube or a bad cap somewhere surrounding it. I would definitely play with G2, the cap off of G2 for sure. But in either case, I am going to hit the hay. I'm getting tired, and I'm running out of things to talk about. I've hit all the points I wanted to hit, and I can't believe that we spent 2.5 hours talking with each other. So with that, you guys, thank you all so much for coming. Randy, we'll see you again soon. Andrew, I hope to hear more from you. And to the rest of you, thank you. We'll see you next time.